The storm rolled in without warning, tearing across the Texas plains like something angry and alive, swallowing the sky in charcoal clouds and whipping the dry earth into spirals of dust. The ranch roads were empty, cattle already herded into shelter, and most folks in town had long since bolted their doors. No one expected that in the middle of that merciless wind and rain, a young woman was crawling through the mud, her body shaking, her vision blurred, her breath shallow and broken. Her name was Eliza May Carter, though at that moment, even she had forgotten it. Blood trickled from a split in her eyebrow. Her lip was swollen beyond recognition. Bruises blossomed dark and cruel across her ribs. Every movement sent lightning through her nerves. She had run as far as she could from the man who promised to love her, the man who had slowly turned into a monster. The rain masked her sobs. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't go back. Behind her, miles away, stood the small farmhouse where screams had become a nightly routine. Where apologies followed punches. Where promises dissolved into rage. Tonight had been worse. Tonight, she had heard something in his voice that chilled her more than the storm ever could. So she ran. Barefoot. Bleeding. Broken. The headlights appeared suddenly through the sheets of rain. She flinched, panic surging through her battered body. Another man. Another threat. Her muscles tried to move faster, but her legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed onto the gravel shoulder, too weak to crawl anymore. The truck slowed. Stopped. The engine cut. Boots hit the wet earth. Heavy. Steady. Certain. She curled into herself, instinctively protecting her head. "Please," she whispered hoarsely. "Please don't." A deep voice answered, rough like worn leather but gentle in its tone. "Ma'am. I ain't gonna hurt you." She didn't believe him. She had believed someone once before. The boots came closer, but not rushed. Not aggressive. Just careful. The man crouched a few feet away instead of grabbing her. She felt his presence, warm against the cold rain. "You're safe," he said quietly. "I promise." Safe. The word sounded foreign. Slowly, cautiously, she lifted her eyes. He was older. Mid-40s maybe. Broad-shouldered, rain soaking into his denim jacket. A cowboy hat shielded his face from the worst of the storm, but she could see his eyes clearly. And they weren't cruel. They weren't hungry. They weren't angry. They were worried. "My name's Daniel Hayes," he said softly. "I've got a ranch about 10 miles from here. You look hurt bad. Let me help you." She shook her head weakly. He'll come looking." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice stayed calm. "Not tonight, he won't. Storm's too heavy. And if he does," his eyes hardened just a fraction. "He won't take you." Something in the way he said it made her believe him. He removed his jacket and gently draped it around her shoulders. She flinched at first touch, but his hands were steady, careful not to press where she winced. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried. Failed. Without hesitation, he slipped one arm behind her back and the other beneath her knees. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, carrying her through the rain toward his truck. She braced for something, a squeeze too tight, a wandering hand, a shift in tone. It never came. He set her gently in the passenger seat and buckled her in like she was something fragile and precious. The drive was silent except for thunder rolling overhead. At the ranch house, warm light glowed through the windows. He carried her inside, laying her carefully on a worn leather couch near the fireplace. He moved with purpose, grabbing blankets, a first aid kit, clean water. When he returned, he knelt beside her. "This might sting," he warned gently as he cleaned the blood from her face. She didn't cry. She had no tears left. "Why?" she finally whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. "Why are you helping me?" He paused. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then quietly, he said, "Because once, someone didn't help my wife when she needed it." Her eyes shifted to him. "She died alone," he continued, voice low and steady but heavy with memory. "Car accident. Folks drove past. Storm that night too. Said later they thought it wasn't safe to stop." The room felt still. "I won't make that mistake," he said firmly. The words settled into her bones. "I won't make that mistake." Hours passed. He stitched a small cut on her arm. Wrapped her ribs as best he could. Gave her water slowly. Never once crossed a boundary. Never once looked at her with anything but respect. When exhaustion finally claimed her, she drifted into sleep by the fire. But even in sleep, she trembled. Daniel stayed in the armchair beside her all night. When she cried out in a nightmare, "Don't leave me," he was already there, his voice cutting through the darkness. "I won't leave you," he said firmly. She gripped his sleeve like a lifeline. And for the first time in years, she slept without fear. Morning sunlight poured softly across the wooden floors. She woke disoriented. Then she remembered. The storm. The road. The cowboy. Panic flickered, but it faded when she saw him at the kitchen table, quietly drinking coffee, giving her space. He noticed she was awake but didn't rush over. "You hungry?" he asked casually, like this was the most normal thing in the world. She nodded slightly. He cooked eggs and toast, setting the plate near her without sitting too close. "Phone's there if you need to call someone," he added. "Or the sheriff. Whatever you want. Your choice. Your choice." Another unfamiliar concept. She studied him carefully. "Why do you live alone?" she asked. He gave a small half-smile. "Grief's quieter that way." She didn't understand fully, but she felt it. For days, she stayed. He fixed fences. Fed horses. Chopped wood. She watched. Slowly, she began helping. First washing dishes. Then tending a small garden patch. She learned his routine. He learned her silence. One evening, as the sun dipped gold behind the hills, she finally spoke the words she'd been holding. "He said no one would want me," she whispered. "Said I was damaged." Daniel leaned against the fence, looking out over the pasture. "He was wrong," he said simply. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from being believed. From being seen. From not being abandoned. But peace never comes without a test. And one afternoon, dust rose on the horizon. A truck. Familiar. Her heart stopped. Daniel noticed the change in her breathing before he saw the vehicle. He stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between her and the approaching threat. The truck door slammed. Boots hit dirt. A furious voice echoed across the ranch. "Eliza." She froze. Daniel's voice was steady, unshaken. "She don't want to see you." The man laughed cruelly. "She belongs to me." Daniel didn't move. "No," he replied quietly. "She doesn't." The tension in the air was electric. Eliza's fingers trembled. Would history repeat itself? Or had the storm truly brought her somewhere safe? To find out what happens next. How far Daniel will go to protect her. And whether Eliza finally finds the courage to stand on her own. The truck engine cut off, but the silence that followed felt louder than thunder. Eliza's breath turned shallow. Her hands began to shake, the same way they used to before a door slammed, before a fist flew, before apologies turned into threats. The man stepping out of that truck wasn't just her past, he was every nightmare she had ever tried to bury. Daniel didn't look back at her. He didn't ask if she was scared. He already knew. He stepped forward instead. Boots firm in the dirt. Shoulders squared. Not aggressive. Not reckless. Just immovable. Eliza, the man shouted again, his voice sharp with anger and wounded pride. Get in the truck. Now. She flinched. Daniel's voice came low and steady. She ain't going anywhere. The man sneered. This doesn't concern you, old man. Daniel tilted his head slightly. The moment you laid a hand on her, it did. A bitter laugh escaped the man's lips. She's my wife. Eliza's heart pounded violently in her chest. Daniel didn't hesitate. Not if she says she isn't. For the first time, he turned slightly, just enough for Eliza to see his profile. He wasn't asking permission. He wasn't telling her what to do. He was reminding her she had a voice. Her ex, because that's what he truly was, stepped closer. His presence felt toxic, suffocating even from yards away. You think she ran here because she wants you, he spat. She's weak. She always runs. She'll come back. The words pierced her, because once, she believed them. But something had changed over the past week. No shouting. No slammed doors. No walking on eggshells. Just quiet mornings. Shared meals. Gentle patience. Daniel didn't rescue her with grand speeches. He rescued her with consistency. She ain't weak, Daniel said quietly. She survived you. That hit harder than any punch ever could. Her ex's jaw tightened. Eliza. Get in the truck. The command tone. The ownership. The entitlement. For a moment, her old fear almost won. Her feet nearly moved. But Daniel didn't reach for her. He didn't block her. He didn't control her. He just stood there, ready if she needed him. The choice was hers. And that terrified her more than anything. Because freedom meant responsibility. It meant speaking. It meant standing. Her ex stepped forward again, losing patience. Don't embarrass me. Embarrass him. The words echoed in her mind, and suddenly something inside her cracked. Not in weakness. In clarity. She stepped forward. Her voice trembled at first. I'm not coming back. The wind carried her words across the ranch. Her ex blinked as if he hadn't heard correctly. What? I'm not coming back, she repeated, stronger this time. His face darkened. You don't get to decide that. Yes, she said, tears filling her eyes but her spine straightening. I do. The silence that followed was explosive. He took another step, and Daniel moved instantly, placing himself fully between them. Not violent. Not threatening. Just solid as a mountain. You heard her, Daniel said. Rage flickered in the man's eyes. You think you're some hero? You don't even know her. Daniel's reply was calm. I know enough. The man laughed harshly. She's damaged goods. And that was it. Before Eliza could stop herself, she stepped around Daniel. I am not damaged, she said, voice shaking but fierce. You tried to break me. You tried to make me believe I was nothing. But I am not nothing. Her ex looked stunned. Because this wasn't the woman who used to shrink. This wasn't the woman who used to apologize for breathing too loud. Daniel didn't interrupt. He didn't speak for her. He let her reclaim herself. If you come near this ranch again, Daniel said evenly, the sheriff will be involved. And I'll make sure every bruise you gave her is documented. The threat wasn't loud. It was certain. For a moment, it seemed like the man might push further. But something in Daniel's stance, something steady and unshakable, made him reconsider. He spat near the dirt. You'll regret this. Eliza surprised herself by answering calmly, no. I won't. The truck door slammed. Engine roared. Dust kicked into the air. And just like that, he was gone. But the shaking didn't stop immediately. Her knees buckled, not from fear this time, but from adrenaline leaving her body. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. He didn't say, I told you so. He didn't say, you're safe now. He just held her upright until her breathing steadied. It's over, she whispered. He nodded. It is. But healing isn't instant. The days after were strange. Relief mixed with guilt. Freedom mixed with fear of the unknown. One evening, she found Daniel sitting on the porch, staring at the sunset. You could have gotten hurt, she said quietly. He shrugged lightly. Worth it. She sat beside him. Why? She asked again, but this time the question was deeper. He was quiet for a long time. My wife, he began slowly, was strong. Stronger than me in a lot of ways. After she died, I thought I failed her. Thought if I'd left work earlier, if I'd called more, if I'd insisted she stay home during that storm, maybe she'd still be here. He swallowed hard. I can't change that night. But I can choose who I am today. Eliza felt tears fill her eyes. You didn't have to choose me. Yes, he said softly. I did. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. But because he saw her. Weeks turned into months. The bruises faded. The nightmares lessened. She began laughing again, softly at first, then freely. She started helping more around the ranch, learning to ride, learning to mend fences, learning that strength didn't have to mean hardness. One afternoon, while they were fixing a gate together, she paused. You said once someone didn't help your wife. He nodded quietly. She took a breath. You helped me. He met her eyes. I won't leave you, he said again, not as a rescue promise this time, but as a partnership. She smiled. For the first time, it wasn't a fragile smile. It was steady. Months later, she stood in town, filing the final paperwork to legally separate herself from the man who had tried to own her. Her hands didn't shake. When she walked out, Daniel was waiting near his truck. Not hovering. Just present. She walked up to him and said, It's official. He tipped his hat slightly. How do you feel? She thought about it. Like I finally chose myself. He smiled, proud, but not possessive. The ranch wasn't just shelter anymore. It was home. And Daniel wasn't just a cowboy who saved her from a storm. He was proof that kindness still exists. That strength can be gentle. That love doesn't control, it protects, supports, and stands beside. And as they stood watching another Texas sunset, Eliza realized something powerful. The storm that nearly destroyed her led her to the man who refused to walk away. If this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can still change lives, if you want more powerful, emotional stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because the next story might remind someone else that they are not damaged. They are just waiting for someone to say, I won't leave you.